Ever feel like you're chasing the perfect brew, but your beers are just all over the place? You make a fantastic batch, one that you're genuinely proud of, and then the next one is just meh. You use the same ingredients. You thought you did everything the same way, but the beer in your glass is a ghost of what it was the last time you brewed it. It's one of the most frustrating things about brewing. What if I told you the secret to consistently incredible beer isn't about the ingredients? The real gap between good brewers and great ones, and what separates the hobbyists from the pro level brewers, is just two things. The great ones stop chasing recipes and start owning their process through measurement and control. They're obsessed with repeatability and a system that makes amazing beer every single time. In this episode of Quality Focused Pro Brewers, I'm going to share 5 game-changing techniques that'll give you the control that you've been searching for. And no, this isn't about buying a bunch of shiny, expensive gear. It's about a shift in your mindset. By the end of this episode, you'll have the tools you need to brew beer you're proud of, batch after batch. Let's get brewing. G'day brewers, my name is Hendo and I'm a brewer coach from the Rockstar Brewer Academy. I help home brewers and pro brewers from all over the world who struggle to find reliable brewing knowledge to brew world-class beer. Now the first technique is maybe the biggest mental shift you can make as a brewer. Stop writing beer recipes and start writing product specifications. So, what's the difference between a recipe and a product specification? A recipe is just basically a shopping list, a mash program and a boil, and it's like 10 pounds of 2-row, 1 pound of Crystal 60, mash at 68 Celsius for 60 minutes, then boil for 60 minutes. A product specification, it's the blueprint for a finished beer, and it's the map to help you get there. It's a document that defines exactly what you want to create and, more importantly, how you create it before you even think about ingredients. This is how the world's best breweries operate, and it's the absolute key to their consistency. And if you're a home brewer, this is going to work for you too. Think of it like building a house. A recipe is like showing up with a pile of timber and nails. A product specification is the architectural blueprint with every dimension, tolerance, and detail planned out, and that includes a detailed drawing of what the house will eventually look like. So what does a product specification actually look like when you write one down? It starts with a clear definition of beer quality through the 2 lenses of fit for use and true to brand. Fit for use defines the key numbers in your final beer. So for an IPA, it might be your target or OG is 1065, your target final gravity is 1012, your ABV is 6.9%, your bitterness is 60 IBUs, the colour is 12 EBC, and the carbonation level is 2.6 volumes of CO2. True to brand, on the other hand, defines the sensory targets in terms of what the beer is supposed to look like, smell like, taste like, and feel like. So for example, with that same IPA, you might have a true to brand description of appearance is golden, bright with a white persistent foam. Aroma is of medium pine and grapefruit and low biscuit malt. Flavour is medium malt sweetness and medium pine and grapefruit hop flavour. High but clean bitterness. Body is medium and the carbonation level is also medium. You see the difference? We haven't even mentioned a single hop, grain or yeast, but when writing a beer recipe, you've got to start with the end goal in mind and then map out the raw materials and the process to get you there. Getting this right up front means you turn your brew day from a cooking session into an engineering project. Your job isn't just to follow a beersmith or brewfather or brewer's friend recipe anymore, because they produce recipes for wort and not beer. Approaching recipe writing like this kills the mystery of a bad batch. Instead of wondering what went wrong, you start seeing problems as they happen and you fix them on the fly. It's the foundation of brewing with intent. Now, before I dive into how to execute the perfect brew day, could you just check to see if you're subscribed to the channel? Subscribing is free and it helps you to ensure that you get notified when I release a new episode. And we're about to hit a big milestone here, and I love taking the team out to celebrate wins with a few beers. So if you could help us there, I'd really appreciate it. Okay, so you got your product specification and you're ready to brew. How do you pull off the perfect brew day? That brings us to the next technique, creating a batch log and mastering what I call the sacred trilogy of brew day measurements. Forget all the other noise on brew days, such as your mash efficiency and your sparge volume. The sacred trilogy of the perfect brew day is your wort gravity, your wort temperature, and your wort pH. And if you want to make a great batch of beer, it all starts with the perfect brew day. It's easy to get lost in the weeds and obsessing over a dozen different things happening around you and measurements that simply don't matter. For example, no one's ever tasted a beer and gone, great mash efficiency. See, over the years, I learned that if you focus and if you just nail your gravity, temperature, and pH at knockout on brew day and make every decision leading up to that point to get you closer to the sacred trilogy, then pretty much everything else just falls into place with the rest of the batch. These three measurements are the pillars of a repeatable process. So, let's break down what the sacred trilogy actually is. First, your wort gravity. Now, this is just a measure of the sugar of the wort, of course, and it's the most direct predictor of your beer's potential alcohol and the body and final gravity of the beer. You've got to measure gravity at key moments. Your pre-boil gravity to see if you've oversparged or not, and post-boil, your original gravity to make sure you hit the starting line for your product specification. Your pre-boil and post-boil gravities should be the same. Miss your gravity and the final beer just won't be what you designed, and it's non-negotiable. The second is your wort temperature. Temperature is the main dial for setting up your yeast for a healthy fermentation. Too hot and you'll risk having too many esters or maybe fusel alcohols in your beer that you just don't want. If your temperature's too low, your fermentation may not even kick off at all, or you might become a victim to diacetyl or acetaldehyde. And that brings us to the third and most often ignored member of the sacred trilogy, wort pH. And this is a water chemistry number. Look, pH is a measure of acidity, and yes, it impacts every single stage of your brew. Most brewers focus on mash pH, and while this is important, if you fail to measure the pH near the end of the boil and adjust it accordingly, you risk not hitting your target beer pH, which is the flavour you can taste in the glass. Great brewers live by the sacred trilogy because it simplifies a complex process down to the absolute essentials. Instead of chasing a dozen variables that really don't matter, you focus your energy on nailing just these three. Set a target via your product specification before you mash in and then log the actual numbers every single time you brew. This data, it's your roadmap. The next time you brew this beer, your goal is to just hit those same numbers again. And that right there is how you build consistency. All right, so you're on top of it. You get to near the end of your boil, you cool a sample, check the gravity, and disaster strikes. Your target gravity was 1065, but your hydrometer or your density meter says 1070. You overshot it. Now, in the past, you might have shrugged and said, well, I guess I'm making a stronger beer now. This is where the next technique comes in to save the day. Using the dilution calculation to correct your gravity hot side before the yeast ever sees it is key to hitting the sacred trilogy. This is standard practice in the pro-level breweries, but for some reason, it feels like a homebrewer's secret weapon. The idea is dead simple. If your gravity is too high, you just dilute with a calculated amount of brewing water so you hit your target OG perfectly. It's not cheating, it's precision. And the math is surprisingly easy. You just use gravity points, which is everything after the decimal. So if you've got 1070, you just use 70 gravity points. And if your target is 1065, that's 65 gravity points. And the formula is ridiculously simple. It goes like this. Your final volume at your target gravity equals current volume times current gravity divided by your target gravity. So let's use our example. Let's say you've got 5.5 gallons of wort at 1070 and you want to hit 1065. Your final volume is 5.5 gallons times 70 gravity points divided by 65 gravity points. And so your final volume at 1065 is 5.92 gallons. Now, the math says that your total volume at your target OG is 5.92 gallons. And since you already know that you've got 5.5 gallons in the kettle, you just need to subtract your current volume, which gives you the amount of water you need to add. So in this case, you're going to dilute with about 0.42 gallons of water, and boom, you've hit the 1065 OG target right on the nose. And here's the pro brewer move. Don't think of dilution as just some panic fix because you've done something wrong. Intentionally aim to brew your wort with the gravity too high in the first place. Build it into your process. Aim for a high gravity that's a few points higher than you need. That way, it gives you the power to always dilute down to your exact target. And that's way easier than trying to boil off more water and running a long boil if you undershoot your OG target. Once you embrace dilution as part of your brew day process, you guarantee that every single batch hits the fermenter at the exact gravity that you planned for. eliminates a huge variable and gives you incredible control. And trust me, you'll wonder how you ever brewed without it. So the next thing we've got to do is we've got to talk about yeast and fermentation and pH, right? Put it this way, you've absolutely crushed your brew day. Your mash temp was perfect, your mash pH was dialed in, and you've used the dilution calculation to nail your starting gravity. You pitch your yeast and now you see there's no bubbles in the airlock 24 hours later. Is there something wrong with your yeast? Now, before you see any activity in your airlock, something silent is happening in the background. Fermentation pH is dropping, and if you measure it, this is how you get a silent progress report from your yeast. Just like on brew day, pH is a superpower, and on the cold side of brewing, pH is even more important. Tracking the pH of your fermenting beer, along with your gravity, gives you a window into the health of your yeast that the bubbles and gravity readings alone just can't provide. Here's what your yeast is trying to tell you. So first of all, you're going to get the initial drop. Within the first day or two of a healthy pitch, you should see a big drop in pH before you see any gravity shift or bubbling in your airlock. As the yeast wake up, they start eating sugar and they produce organic acids. And the pH will likely fall from around your wort pH of 5 or 5.2 down to the 4.2 to 4.6 range. This sharp drop is your confirmation that yeast is healthy, happy, and taking control. If you don't see that drop in pH, it's an early warning sign of a sluggish start or even a stuck fermentation. During the main part of fermentation, the pH will hold steady at its lowest point as the gravity keeps dropping. And look, it may even dip below your target beer pH, but don't panic yet. You've not got a contaminated beer. You just need to wait for the yeast to do their thing. And here's the part that most brewers miss. As the beer hits its final gravity, the yeast start to slow down and drop out of suspension as they run out of food to eat. During this cleanup phase, they reabsorb some of the acidic compounds, causing the pH to kick up just a tiny little bit. A small, subtle rise in pH as your gravity stabilizes, in addition to a sensory diacetyl test, is the truest sign that fermentation is well and truly done. So why is pH so powerful during fermentation? It helps you spot problems before they ruin your beer. If your pH drops but then gets stuck high along with your gravity, that's a huge clue to tell you that you've got a yeast health problem. Maybe you've got a contamination and pH gives you an insight into that. If your pH plummets way lower than expected, say way below 4 for a normal clean beer, that's a massive red flag for a bacterial contamination long before you can taste it in the glass. pH is an amazing tool to see if your beer is ready to crash chill. That little kick up in pH at the end of fermentation, that's a clear signal from the yeast that they've clocked out for the day. It tells you it's safe to start cold crashing without worrying about stopping an incomplete fermentation. All you need is a pH meter and you'll get a complete picture of what's really going on in your fermenter. It's a total game changer. Now look, running the perfect brew day and hitting the sacred trilogy of wort, gravity, temperature, and pH is super important if you want to brew consistently great beer. And if you want to know how to run the perfect brew day, then you'll definitely want my perfect brew day guide. And if you want that guide, comment the word perfect below and I'll send you the PDF. Now, let's talk about the end of fermentation and before you crash chill and the quality checks that you've got to do. This next technique is one that'll save your beer from that dreaded slick, buttery off flavour of diacetyl. Now, I'm sure you've seen it before. Your gravity's stable, your pH looks good, and you're ready to package this beauty of a beer you've brewed. But hang on a second. Before you even think about cold crashing, you need to perform the next technique, the forced diacetyl test. Have you ever had a beer that tasted great, but then a week later in the keg it develops this weird butterscotch flavour? That's diacetyl. This simple test ensures that your beer is free of it and its precursor before you crush chill the beer. Here's the science made simple. During fermentation, yeast make a flavourless precursor compound called alpha-acetyl lactate, or AAL. The problem is that AAL will undergo a process called oxidative decarboxylation to form diacetyl, which we can smell and taste. When you cold crush your beer, the yeast drops out and it goes to sleep. And if there's still AAL left in the beer and it converts into diacetyl at a later stage and the yeast isn't around or it's not awake to clean it up, then that diacetyl bomb of a beer is almost guaranteed in your keg, can, or bottle. The forced diacetyl test works by rapidly converting that AAL into diacetyl now and seeing if you can smell or taste it. And here's how to do it. It's really simple. When you think fermentation is done, pull 2 small samples. Use some old plastic water bottles. They're perfect, right? Seal both of them up. Keep one sample at room temperature. That's your control sample. Heat the second sample in a hot water bath to about 140, 150 Fahrenheit, that's 60 to 65 Celsius, for about 20 minutes. Don't boil it, just heat it. After 20 minutes or so, rapidly cool the heated sample back down in an ice bath to room temperature, identical to your control sample. This is critical. Smelling your beer hot will give you some misleading results. The next thing you do is you've got to do the sniff test, all right? Smell both your control sample and the heated and cooled sample in a blind setting so you don't know which is which. If the two samples smell the same with respect to diacetyl, congratulations, your beer has passed and it's safe to cold crash. But if you get even a whiff of butterscotch in one of the samples but not the other, then your beer's failed the diacetyl test. It's a simple pass-fail. But don't panic. The fix for diacetyl is really easy. Just let the beer rest at its current diacetyl rest temperature for another day or two. Sometimes, maybe even bumping the temperature up a couple of degrees can speed things up. The active yeast will find that diacetyl and they'll clean it up straight away. Redo your diacetyl test in a day or two, and once it passes, you're good to go. This simple 20-minute test is your insurance policy against heartbreak. It's the final quality checkpoint at the end of fermentation, and it's a technique you'll thank yourself for learning. It's not about magic ingredients or your recipe. It's about measurement, control, and building a system that gives you consistent process and amazing beer. This system can be implemented by home brewers, those planning or building a brewery, or even those already running a commercial brewery. And if you want to know more about the system or what knowledge you need for where you're at in your brewing journey, then I reckon you should check out this video next. Thanks heaps for watching this episode of Quality Focus Pro Brewers, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.